Hey, welcome to another episode of the Journey to Become a TechnoWizard. So sorry for missing yesterday. Sheesh, man. Time went, it just started flying by, but it wasn't flying by. It was just so busy. So I definitely intended to do it, but I got to set up my triggers. I got to set up my environment a little bit better. So usually I do, as you know, I do these outside. I don't like doing it inside because I have a huge family and it's very loud inside. So hard to get that quiet and stuff that I need. Um, but yesterday it was storming yesterday, so I couldn't come outside and record this. And so I was trying to figure out, when and where to do it and stuff like that. And probably should have done it in the garage or something like that. But at the same time, most of the work I was doing yesterday was looking at the user interviews. Um, so taking all the user interviews and basically transcribing them. So that so much time, man, so much time that takes. And in addition to that, I mean, granted, I couldn't really show that because it's supposed to be confidential. We can't really tell people's names and where they work and stuff like that. Um, but I could have, and I should have, talked about the design principles and the problem statements that we were coming up with. Most of the main reason why I didn't at the time was because I was working with the group, like my group. We were in like a Zoom chat and stuff like that. I mean, maybe I should have just asked them if I could just record that session. So I'll probably do that. I'll make sure to do that in the future. Ask them to record the session. If they say no, then whatever. Then I won't do it. I can just talk about it immediately after the meeting. But if they say yes, then that'll be super cool to see for you all. Um, but really, it's my fault. No excuses. I'm just saying why it happened, how, when, where, so I can be sure to fix it in the future. But yeah, very sorry, and I do better. I do better. So I am outside. I don't have my chair today. They're using it inside. We only have like the one folding chair. The rest are very hard to like. The rest are like dining room chairs, and I can't really move that outside. So I'm on this little swing set that came with the house when we came in, this little super old swing set, but it's something. So he was like, hey, might as well keep it. Um, so I'm on there today. This line looks kind of good, don't it? Like, oh. But anyways, I'm gonna go over those design principles, what we came up with, and then I'm going to go over the problem statements. And then once you have an idea of that, I'll show you I'm gonna go through I have to create a research artifact, and my group chose to do a storyboard. So we're going to storyboard some ideas, some scenarios, some scenes uh, that explains how we expect people to use the app, use the website, use the portal, and the feelings that we want to invoke, or the feelings that we want to pay attention through their journey with our website and app. Uh, so yeah, let's see how that goes. So first, here comes the design principles and whatnot. I'm gonna share my screen. Make sure I share my screen. Here we go. All right. So we start with the problem statement first. So yesterday, my group, we basically took all of the information. We did a recap of the interviews, of all the interviews we've done. So we each did at least 3 interviews, I think, 2, 3, and 4 interviews. Um, and then we kind of, after that recap, we took the needs and pain points that we realized that all of our users have, and we started, just jotting those down. Get a good idea, make sure we have a good idea of our users and their problems. And then from all of that, we broke it down into 2 different problem statements, because usually problem statement, it is one, but this portal, the our this portal it's a portal, so it's gonna have at least 2 perspectives, at least 2 sides of it, like a marketplace type of thing. And usually in the past, if we had 2 sides of an app, we just built one. But in this one, not only does the client really want both of those sides um, kind of addressed, but it also makes sense. Like they're very much combined. They're very much together. The community members and the business representatives, the people or rather the community organizers and the community members. They're kind of interchangeable because, and especially with the LGBTQI plus community, they are all very much very much enjoy connecting with the community, right? So they may work for a nonprofit or for some other organization, but a lot of them, want to take charge of their community. Like they want their job place to feel more inclusive, and they also want to make sure their community is more addressed, is more empowered. So it's a very what's the term I want to use here? They have a lot of solidarity, you know, in their community. That's super awesome to see. So yeah, we definitely want to address both sides here, and it's not going to be super hard because they're not going to differ too much. That's the main, thing from a design standpoint, is that neither these both sides are pretty much the same thing, but we just want to make sure that we're addressing their unique situations and problems, their unique pain points. All right. So this first side is the business representative perspective. And so the business representative is essentially somebody, like I said before, who works at an organization. It could be a nonprofit, it could be a federal or state, government thing, it could be a corporate, or even a small business, right? And they work there, and they connect the resources of their business, of their organization, with initiatives. So if somebody wants to like support a nonprofit group for youth struggling with, maybe coming out or something like that, right? um they, as a business or as an organization, they can say, okay, we have these resources that we can give you to help. And so that's what the business representatives are doing. Usually they are themselves LGBTQI plus people, but also they can be allies. They could just be, people that live, with them, or just, are good people, want to want to help out. And so these business representatives, they work at number of these different organizations. And so these are some of the main problems that we figured they would have. I'm not going to read all of them. I'm just going to go over the later ones. But basically, what we did here, our process was that we took all these pain points and we kind of tried to condense it down into specific, problem statements. So we each kind of wrote our own problem statements, and then we chose from there, what we should keep. So we highlighted some of them, and then we made like a second version that we thought were going to be the more finalized versions. And then from there, it was like, it's still not working out. We have to condense all this further to make just one problem statement. We couldn't have like 4 problem statements, just one. And so we were talking back and forth, and like, what are the major issues here? What are the major things? So we highlighted, some of the most important aspects. There was a lot more highlighted. I just it was before everything was at the top, and we started highlighting, and it got a little chaotic. But I moved everything down here and tried to keep some of the highlights. But yeah, some of the most major points for the business representatives was that they wanted public awareness. They wanted to their purpose, their mission, or whatever. Not well. That's one thing we talked about too, is that a lot of these businesses, whether it be a nonprofit or a corporate organization, they had a mission, right? Like, for instance, if a nonprofit was to give food justice, right? Or a business was to have a technology, innovation and stuff like that, right? The business, the organization, often wanted to align their mission, wanted to make sure their mission was aligned with what they were doing. So if they were trying to, if the business representative was like, hey, we should support this LGBTQIA plus cause, the business was like, our mission is this, and that's that. And so that's the problem. That's one of the problems that we wanted to talk about. Another thing is public awareness, is that a lot of those businesses actually do care about improving the inclusivity of their workplace and making it being an affirming place for those types of people. But the community, the LGBTQI plus community, wasn't really sure, or even like just the community outside of them wasn't really didn't really know, what that company was doing to be inclusive. And so most companies, when they help out for a nonprofit cause, they're usually going in as a sponsor. They're giving like fundraising or something like that, and then they put their logo on there as on the event, like a pride festival. They put their logo on there or whatever. But we wanted to recognize more of this. Like, it can't just be a sponsorship. It can't just be PR. It has to be a more genuine concern. You have to show that more genuine concern to make apparent that the organization cares and that the community is positively impacted, right? And then so yeah, that's the main things that we want to portray. And so from all of that, we came up with this. Businesses need a way to show their support for the LGBTQI plus community by sharing a range of resources in order to increase public awareness of the diverse and informing culture they were creating with or for LGBTQI plus initiatives. I mean, individuals. And yeah, so a couple of words that are important there is that, again, we want to show that, make sure they're showing that support for the community. Make sure they're sharing a range of resources. So that has to be important because, like I said, most organizations only give money, or only think that they can give money. So sometimes they don't support because they don't have the money, or sometimes they only give money, and it's crazy that some nonprofits like can't even receive that money because one, they might not be a 401c3, meaning they meaning that if you give a 401c3 nonprofit, money or in-kind donations or whatever, they can write the company, whoever the organization that gave them that, can write that off on their taxes. But if a company is too small, or they're anti-corporate, like one of these were on the people that we interviewed, um, they can't receive, that money. And so there's a lot more they can be doing than just financial. They can be giving space. So if you have a spare meeting rooms, if you have spare, conference rooms, if you have or just resources like services, if you're a healthcare type of business, you can give free healthcare, which is super helpful for people in this community. So people living with HIV, or people, or trans people, they need specific needs that they can't really get on their insurance. So if you have those type of services you can offer for free, food, specifically for people who were kicked out their homes because they came out, living situations, if you can help out with that, there's a number of things that they can do, that they can give other than money. And so we want to, make that clear here. So yeah, like I said, increase public awareness. And so this last part, we wanted to ensure that we were kind of portraying a mutual benefit. So again, because organizations want to align their mission with the thing they're giving to, like with the cause, then we want to make clear that for corporations and for organizations, increasing their diversity will benefit them. And this has been proven. Like, there's a bunch of facts that show that a more diverse workplace makes that workplace more productive, more friendly, more a better culture, and it brings more talent to that organization. So there's a lot of data there. And so we want to just put that in our problem statement, that we want to make sure that whatever thing that we build, we're making clear to the organization that giving donations will benefit them, will even if it's not directly aligned to their mission statement, it's aligned to the mission of increasing their culture, of making a better workplace, making a better environment, stuff like that. So yeah, that's the business perspective. Whew. And then from the community organizers perspective, these people are, again, it is very much intermingled, but these people are specifically those that are starting initiatives. So some of the ones I can name, there's Queer Bomb, that's the anti corporate one. They're like a pride festival, but they don't take sponsorships from companies. They believe that everything that their um, festival, their event should be free. To people that they know that the community is often the ones hit hardest when it comes to like a recession or something like that. They often are financially strained, and so they want to ensure that they maintain something that's free, and that's authentic. That's another big thing that they wanted to portray, that it's not just about being another party thing sponsored by another alcohol company or something like that, but that they're authentically advocating for kind of like freedom of expression and stuff like that. So yeah, there's a number of these types of organizations and events. Most of these are basically things that these individuals are administrators of, or have organized themselves, or have just been long time participants and stuff like that. And so we're this perspective wants to go through that. So yeah, these are some of the problem statements that we started coming up with. So we highlighted things like being able to connect with organizations in a way that is more effective than just personal networking. So the majority of these organizers had to use their personal network to find resources. So if they wanted to connect with IBM, or who else is in Texas? Uh, I don't know, but let's say like Facebook or whatever. If they want to connect with these organizations, they would have to like see if they knew anybody there. And as you might guess, this is they're not doing this, or sometimes they're doing this with the organization, but oftentimes, more times than not, they're doing this personally, like on their own time. So in addition to working, they then have to spend more time like trying to figure out who to contact to start this organization off, to start this like initiative. And that can be very time consuming. It can even be expensive, like trying to go to events, trying to go to balls, trying to just network. And that's just a lot of time and effort for a very small part of what's going to be a huge amount of work in organizing an event. you know so yeah, we wanted to make that part easier and faster for them. Another thing is making sure that the event that they're doing is impactful um, and meaningful as well. So the reason for that is, it's pretty obvious, but um, a lot of the current mainstream um, events or initiatives for LGBTQIA plus people are kind of like what I said before. It's more party, right? It's more about the party lifestyle, going out in the festival and having fun and drinking and all that. But it's not really pushing forth the quality of life for people in this community. And so they want to make sure that whatever event they put on is making a measurable impact, is actually making a difference. Um, wealth of resources available to the community. Once again, they want to make sure that they're not just reaching out to like for financial means, but for any resources that they can, and specifically to things that are already in the community. Because places like Austin, it's ranked as the number 3 most friendly spot for my feet going to sleep on the swing. They're ranked as one of the top 3 most friendly places for LGBTQIA people. But the problem is that for most people that come into the town, they don't even know what's happening. There's no centralized database or community center to show people what resources they have available to them. So we want to make sure that it's easy for them to see all the resources that they have in the community and really make use of that. Personal networking, I said that before. Other resources, I said that before. Evaluate potential sponsors outside of who they know. That's basically what I said before. But also is like, we also want to make sure that they don't have to cater to certain businesses, because especially this goes for like places like the anti-corporate career bomb, but really any organization, is that when they put it on an event, they're putting on that event for a reason. They don't want to have if they take like $10,000 from a big corporation, they don't want that to be co-opted by that corporation's interests. It needs to be, um, it needs to, they need to be able to evaluate, um, what strings are going to be attached to whatever resources or funding they get, and really see if it's going to be worth it, because sometimes it's not really worth it to take a bunch of money if that's going to kind of, quite frankly, corrupt what you're doing. And finally, we wanted to make sure it's having stable lives. So it's not just is it making a difference, but is the entire cause itself self-sustainable. All right, that's another problem with things like Queer Bomb, is that because they're anti-corporate, they often they have to take funding from their community, meaning whatever their community, they kind of floating on their community. So if their community is struggling right now, then they're not going to be able to get that funding. Um, and they get a lot through local businesses too, but again, if those local businesses are struggling, then that means the whole cause is struggling as well. So we want to make sure that these organizations that they or the initiatives that they start are going to be self-sustainable as well. So yeah, with all that said, this is what we came up with. Community organizers need an easier way to connect with local businesses, corporations, and other organizers beyond personal networking, to access resources such as space, services, and awareness in order to execute impactful, meaningful initiatives that increase the quality of life for members of the LGBTQIA plus community. So boom, bam, that's that. And then after that, we came up with some design principles. We basically had the same process, where we listed a bunch of ideas, right? But for here, we also made groups, right? So for design principles, a good way to start design principles is to create themes. So from all the research that you've done beforehand, all the user interviews, all the domain research surveys or whatever, you're then gonna most likely find some themes that's gonna be you know it's gonna be apparent. You're gonna see the patterns, right? This was a little bit easier, well, a lot easier, because we basically just used the exact same themes that was already in the presentation deck from Quell, from our client, and they had like connect, engage, support. So I just used the same thing and just expanded it a little bit. And I had the fourth theme around that we saw was very common, around making sure supporters are being recognized beyond just sponsorships. And so these are some of the ideas that we came up with, and these are the most likely finalized design. Now everybody has voted. Not everybody in our group has voted yet, but this is most likely what we're going to land on. So we got connecting should be easy, not just a chore. It should take the hassle, time commitment, and expense out of networking. Make it simple and straightforward to find an ally to make an introduction. So just like what I was saying before, they shouldn't have to spend a bunch of money and time, making just networking, trying to connect with people. The next one is meaningful. They should engage with organizations, events, and other initiatives with the purpose of making a measurable positive impact for the community. And then sustainable, once again, they make it self-sustainable. Just going to fly through these. Resourceful, go beyond just money and go into the other resources that's available to them. Place for everyone. This is a really important piece, is that, again, well, the mainstream, like I said before, the mainstream events are kind of like parties, and not only are they sort of parties, but they often from I'm not gonna say it, but they often focus around like white gay men, apparently, by admission of a lot of these community members. And so they feel like a lot of the pride festivals and the organizations are kind of specific to mainstream kind of ideas of the LGBTQIA plus community. And so even within that community, there are underrepresented people. So like trans people, they're not often given any resources. Um, uh, People living with the HIV are really struggling with that. Non-binary people are struggling. There's a lot of pieces to that community, to the spectrum, that are not fairly or just giving their due. So we want to make sure that this portal, this thing that we're building, is not centered around just one, or just the most popular or common people. We want to make sure it's equally helpful to all of them. But it's also going to be specific. So if we know this group of people needs this specific thing, we're going to make sure the portal is able to give them that. And then relevance beyond mission statements. So that's basically what I was saying before, in regards to helping organizations see that their mission, just because their mission may not be aligned with the cause at surface glance, that doesn't mean that doesn't mean it's irrelevant. So we want to increase that relevancy. And then more than rainbow stickers, one of my favorite ones, just because I think that's a fancy name. But we want to make sure that the sponsorship, the recognition is beyond sponsorships, is actually meaningful, is actually giving due process, for on both sides. So for corporations or organizations that are making the difference, we want to show that they are making the difference, not just give them a sticker. We want to make it somehow apparent that these organizations care and are really making an impact. And for people, and so for the people that's coming from the outside, they can then see, or rather, the people that's in the LGBTQIA plus community, they can then see that organizations really care. So, because sometimes there can be a cynical kind of mindset against corporations, against these big organizations that say, hey, they don't really care. They're just doing that for the PR. But if we can show them that some of these organizations really care, then that will make a big difference on both sides. So those are our design principles. Whew. Probably end the video there, right? Just recapping all that. But I missed yesterday, so this one gonna be extra long, y'all. You can always pause it, come back, whatever. So now let's get down to the storyboarding. Some activity here. All right. Whew. Okay, so storyboarding, we want to come up with some type of scenes. We want to think about what problems they're facing, people in our community are facing. We want to think about their pain points and think about the journey. So we're going to take, it's just like a story. There's an article here. Just like a regular story. You got your exposition, your rising action, your climax, the battle, whatever, the solution that's happening, falling action, and then the resolution or conclusion. And so we want to think about this app, this website, this idea at the same time. We might not know the exact solution yet, but we know the end goal. We know what we want to accomplish. And so the storyboard is going to allow us to kind of think about that process, to think about what that feels like to the people using this platform here. And so we're going to start with just the words, and then maybe put some emojis, and then after that we'll end it, because it's going to take a long time to visualize. So that's going to be a whole separate thing. But here we go. So let's see here. Oops. Oh gosh. Stupid Max, man. All right. So let's try to figure out some scenes. Oh god damn. That slipped off the swing. Oh my gosh. I need my chair, man. All right, slow. That was funny. Good thing nobody really watches this. Maybe like one person. Hey Zach. Saw me fall there. All right, so business perspective. So we want to think about the scenes. We just went over these perspectives, so we don't really have to go over it again. So let's think about the problems, right? You stated many problems that they have, but I think the kind of the core problem that the business representative has is essentially aligning is 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 making their organization care for the LGBTQIA plus community. So they may want to, like, a LGBTQIA plus person starts working at an organization, and maybe they work there for a couple months, maybe even a year, and they feel like either A, the place is not inclusive enough, which is a problem, but I don't think this app is gonna be meant to solve that problem. So B, they are living in Austin, they're living in the city, and they feel like their organization can do more, to help out. Perhaps they work at a big company, right? They work at a company with a couple thousand people. They make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. The company makes millions a year. Maybe they have a decent salary. Maybe they about middle class. Maybe I say what 60, 70, maybe even 70, 80,000 a year. And so on their own, or let's say they had to work in order to work at that organization. They're kind of a workaholic. They do a lot for that job. So they do so much that they don't often have time to do anything else outside of that job. Maybe they have a social life, just barely, but they don't really. They volunteer, but they don't really have time to start something on their own. So they want to help their organization. They want to um, kind of push their organization to support the community, because they realize the community that has needs. Perhaps they're living with HIV. They had HIV for a long time now, 5, 8 years. um, so it's not just a matter of of getting whatever medical help they need. Is really just being able to connect with other people who live with HIV. Maybe um, removing the stigma that's associated with it. And so they want their organization to make donations to aid services, or better yet, um, some new nonprofit that's coming up that has small support groups for HIV people living with HIV. So these small support groups are um, are like, has a therapist, has people in that group that help deal with that problem. Um, Maybe there's medical supplies associated with it, but the point is that this is a new up and coming nonprofit. They're not a 501c3 yet, um, but they seem to be, they're most likely going to be very impactful for the community if they can grow. And so this person, let's call him Jake. Jake wants to um, Jake wants to help. Jake's want their job to help support this up and coming community. Their job is a very inclusive space already. They have affinity groups, or rather they have I'm gonna call it equity groups. So there's a these equity groups are like different employee resource groups that help underrepresented people within the company to get connected with the resources that they need. So for instance, there's one for his community, LGBTQIA plus community. There's one for the there's one for African Americans, there's one for Asian Americans, so on and so forth. And the company really cares. They've done a lot in the community already. They help out with food shelters, they help out with this, that, and the other. So he knows they'll be malleable, but he knows it's going to be a little bit of a hard sell, because it's not a 501c3. They can't write it off on taxes, and it's a very small company. It's a small organization that he wants to support, and it's not a mainstream thing, and it's a little bit of a stigma living with HIV. So So what is his journey? So that's who he is. That's Jake. That's the problems he's facing. Um, so the first part of the journey, I think they said, is the trigger. Sheesh, is that necessary? Y'all hear that? All right. So the first part is the rising action, and you have like an initial trigger, or really the context. That's right, the context. So I mean, I'm gonna have to make it a tech company, right? I feel like this should be a little smaller because we're gonna draw some arrows and whatnot. Um, wants to connect, support a new nonprofit, creating intimate support group. Oh, sheesh. Support groups. All right. So I think that's it right there. Just the other side. And so that's the first part, right? That's the let's give this a title. Rising action context. Oh no, not rising action. That's the exposition. Is that not that's what it's called? Exposition, all right. Yeah, exposition. And so boom bam. That's the problem he's dealing with right here. So the next piece. There we go. All right, the next piece is the rising action. That's going to be the trigger. So what does he do? So at this stage, perhaps either he can, maybe this is where he interacts with the app, or this is where he interacts with, I think, the app. I figure he would maybe ask to see if they can do it, and kind of like a double rising action type of thing. So I figured logically, this is real. He would ask like the resource group leaders, whoever's on the board or whatever, that however it works, the leadership, to say, hey, can we support this organization? They're not 501c3, but they can. I think they could be very impactful. They're like, I don't see how that's going to, I don't see how we can do that. They might say, you know, we usually focus around, helping LGBTQIA plus people learn programming skills, learn tech skills. I'm not sure how this will help with that. Um, so he's like, you know, what can you say with that? He's like, I mean, sure, but this could be very beneficial to himself and, that community, because there are a lot of people who are struggling, maybe with depression, maybe with this, that, and the other, because they feel ostracized within their own community. So he interacts. I say he needs something to kind of to leverage. He needs something to strengthen his argument there. So maybe the person asked them to give him some, good metrics on how that will help the community, some data on the problems that those people face, how many people face this problem, stuff like that. Um, because they're not really a bad guy. They're not bad people. They don't want to crush his dreams or anything like that. They just don't see the benefit. They just don't see uh, the investment there. Um, that's a lot. Even if it's not like money, they're giving, or whatever he's asking for, or maybe he probably would start with asking for money, which would be even harder to sell because they can't write it off in their taxes and stuff like that. That's just how the process usually goes. In these big organizations, you have a process and you have to follow that process, even if it's not necessary. Sometimes you just have to follow the process, and oftentimes they don't question it. So that's going to be hard to push against that inertia. Um, so perhaps he needs something. Our Jake needs something more to, he needs more data. He needs to show that this will make a difference. This is how many people will impact. This is how many people face this problem. Um, this is what it will mean to them, and this is what you can give. This is what you can do. So he needs that. He needs some good deliverables. So say Jake, ask for if he can, they can fund, give some funds to the nonprofit. Let's give a name to the nonprofit, right? Or maybe it's called I'm gonna steal a name from Quell on there, because I'm the best ideas are real ideas, realistic. And this idea actually comes from on Quell's presentation deck. They have something called agape groups, agape groups. I don't know, AGAPE. I'm not sure how you say that. Agape. I know what it is, like agape love and stuff like that. But yeah, he has a thing for these small groups that would these small support groups, essentially. They're exactly what I said. They're not necessarily specifically for people living with underlying health conditions, but they're just for anything. So a small group that is for each type of person in the community. So whoever needs like a small support group, that's what that is. Agape groups is there to help them, is to give them that group that they need. And so I'm gonna agape. Jake asked if they can give some funds to agape to for its first fundraiser. Let's enter that. There we go. Equity team manager needs more data to see how and why they should help. I'm not gonna say why, but I'll just say how they can help. So now Jake, opens up the app, goes to the Quell portal to see what resources they need or something like that. See what resources Agape needs and potential impact. All right. So that's that, I think. I think that's a good way to go about it. Let's see. Let's check their example. Tom lives alone, suffering depression. Tom's friend Susan knows something's wrong. Tom, but she's not sure to reach out to him. Oh, okay. Downloads Hotline app into our tone. My song. Okay. So maybe I can simplify a little bit more, or rather separate that. Yeah, so this part can be separated. Sheesh, this slide really making my feet go to sleep, man. Not the slide, but the swing. Got these hard little itty bitty seats. Look at this. My butt can barely fit in there. uh, I balance on here. Got a little stand up here. It's kind of sideways. Ooh. Okay. So we got that. So he goes on there, and yeah. So again, we don't want to go into the solution here. We don't want to go into how the platform works, anything like that, because that's for the next level. That's for the next stage. At this stage, we want to think in these terms right here. The next stage, we let our ideas fly. But in this stage, we know what we want to. We know the goal. We know what we want to accomplish, and what we want to accomplish here is, like I said on our design principles, is to make it easy for them to see, the impact. They make it easy for them to see how this will make a difference to the community. So we're going to give them that. So on the Quell portal, so the Quell portal maybe gives him data. It gives him a list of resources that Agape needs. So maybe they list out. So maybe they don't even need a whole lot of funding because they're pretty much, they have a bunch of volunteers, that wants to be in this group. They have a lot of things. What they need is space. They need space to meet. Because some of these people, maybe they're not comfortable. They can't really meet at home. They don't really have a home or stuff like that. So they need a space to meet. And what else would they need? We'll start there. Maybe that's the number one thing they need. So get back on here. Hope my foot doesn't slip. So Jake, I don't know, Quell. Quell lists the top needs. I don't know what phrase this. Essentially, what I want to say is that Quell is giving them the Quell. What I want to say is that the platform is able to show the data that he needs. Is able to show the impact that it will have to the community. That hey, this is gonna impact 100,000 people. You know, I don't know if that's a lot. That's probably too much. Unrealistic number, but if 3% of the population is LGBTQIA plus, you know, maybe this will impact 1% of that population. So that could still be a pretty big number. For city of Austin has how many people live in the city of Austin? Let me see. Maybe we don't even need a realistic number, but whatever. Has 964,000 people. So I'm just rounding up to a million because it's 2020. So 3% of a million is what, 300,000, 30,000? Gee, I'm terrible at math. I'm sorry. 3% of 1 million. Yeah, 30,000. I was right. Cool. So yeah, 30,000 people. This will impact 10,000 people. I seem small. I'm gonna be honest with you. So let's say it impact 20,000 people. Shoot, I imagine most of the community, a large percent of the community could use support groups like this. But I don't know. We'll go with 10,000 people. Keep it a little bit conservative, but that's still a good number for a new organization. I was gonna say just in the first year. Is that's probably too much, right? Let's just stick with that. 10K plus people, and only needs um, space for private meetings. These people struggle with depression and the loneliness. They can be right, they can. Well, I was gonna say like they can increase productivity, blah blah blah, but you don't need all that, man. What's the problem they're facing? Without a support group. Boom, bam. And then he shows this to him. The Langic shows this data to the boss, who can easily give a few rooms they aren't using to such a important calls. And then boom bam, Agape uses these rooms, which exposes thousands of people to technology, and this B2B company's inclusive culture. Who then, start talking about it like, oh man, we got to, this corporation let us, use their room to do these support groups. It can go far. It can go far. Something like that can go far. So boom, bam. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, I think that's a really that's a thing. I think that's a really good story right there. Solves a problem. It shows you that the problem that there's sometimes we think solutions might be more complicated or more expensive or bigger or less important than they seem, but really it might be a simple thing that we can do can really change somebody's entire life, and which can go far far down the line afterwards. So yeah, I think that's a good way to end this, and hope you learned something from this as well. It was fun. I don't know how long this video was, but it was cool. I enjoyed myself, and hopefully I made up for yesterday. Sorry, but yeah. See ya and have a good day.